So, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation With. If you're joining us on Friday night over on the Azure Live Twitch.tv stream, thanks so much for joining in. Please do take part in the chat below, and don't forget to give the channel a follow and a like. You'll get notified when we go live next time. Equally, if you're joining us on the YouTube channel on Catch Up, thanks so much. Don't forget to click like and subscribe and click the little bell notification so you get notified when new content gets uploaded. Okay, so my guest this week, he's a huge cloud advocate, and he's a core team member of the 100 Days Cloud Initiative. He's currently working as a DevOps engineer for a company called ECI over in Ontario, Canada. On that note, my guest this week is Rishab Kumar. So, hey Rishab, how you doing?
Hey John, good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. It's been a while. We've been chatting a while, I think it's probably fair to say, over on Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's
Twitter world.
Yeah, I think it's been around 6 to 5 months on Twitter and Discord. But yeah, it's great to see you finally, and thanks for having me.
No, not at all. I mean, it is great to have you on. I think when I first started my whole sort of public-facing cloud journey, the initiative that I jumped straight into was the 100 Days of Cloud. I think that's where we originally met. But before we get into all that goodness, for those that are watching, I don't know if you just want to give yourself a quick introduction, tell us what you're up to, what you're doing. That'd be cool.
Sure. Most of you guys know that I have been documenting my 100 Days of Cloud journey, and that's how I got into cloud. I met cool, awesome folks like John, GPS, NIS, and a lot others through that journey. And it's been great to be part of 100 Days of Cloud. And in the end, it all worked out for me. As you can see, I'm working as a DevOps engineer now. So, yeah.
No, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, let's kick on with the 100 Days of Cloud, because I think it was GPS I first got wind with when she did that talk with Scott Hanselman it's a good few months back now. And that kind of kicked me over to the 100 Days Cloud. I don't know if you want to jump straight in with that, explain to people what it's all about and how you got involved with that initiative.
Sure. I think this was last year, and we were under a lockdown, and I know a lot of other cities in Europe were under a lockdown. And I just decided to go back and get some certifications. I only had one certificate for AWS, that was the Cloud Practitioner. And I did see something called 100 Days of Code on Twitter that was quite active. And me, myself, I was not so active on Twitter myself. But then I saw, I might pronounce it incorrect. I think it's Johan or Mohan. I don't know how he pronounces his name. He posted something that he was preparing for an Azure certificate, and he had the hashtag 100 Days of Cloud. And I just started posting my progress using the same hashtag. And then I think things just started like going on. I know Andrew reached out. He was like, hey, do we know if like this is an actual challenge or not? So then we reached out, Code Newbie, and we talked to them. They're like, yeah, this is 100 Days of Cloud or 100 Days of Code, and there's no such challenge as 100 Days of Cloud. So that's when we decided to make it as a challenge. We set up Discord servers, GitHub repos, and all those kind of stuff. I know GPS was part of the core team because she was doing her part in Azure, and she was quite active on YouTube at the moment. Yeah. So she helped us with setting up code of conduct, and she made some cool YouTube videos on how to start this challenge and how the GitHub worked for folks who were not aware with it. But yeah, that was how it all started, and I think now we're close to 1,300 members on the Discord, and I know I've seen quite few active people who have been like posting their progress on Twitter, their daily progress, which is just great to see.
Absolutely. I think, like alluded to, I think I started it must have been around about June, July time last year. I
Yep.
think, I mean, obviously, people that know me and have watched a few of these episodes before, I've touched on it. I've spoken with other people about why I
Hmm.
took on that challenge. I mean, I'm assuming you went through the 100 days yourself, Rishab, and
Yep.
got to the end. I've seen a few people do another loop,
Hmm.
have round two, and I thought, okay, so I mean, what did it mean for you? Why the 100 days of cloud? What is it all about?
For me, it was just like getting certified, honestly, because I already worked as cloud ops engineer, and I had my um like I had a good experience how we use AWS in production environments. So for me, it was just getting certifications to like upskill my resume, or um, get a better job or get a raise at the current job. And that's why I did it. But I know a lot of folks who are starting out in cloud who are not aware of what cloud is, or just starting out. And for them, I think it's a really good challenge. And for me, I think I planned to take like 5 certificates, but I ended up having 8.
Hmm.
So I think the consistency that like it had me to do for the 100 days, and studying every day for, I think I studied every day for an hour. Just the drive was amazing. And that's the thing about learning in public is, when you post every day on Twitter, like you're held accountable of your actions. And there's just a great community that like helped me go through it in the first round, because there were certain times I would be like, oh, I'm just done. But it's a great community. And thanks to the community that I think I started my round 2, but I just quit. I'm like, I can't do this now.
I mean, at the end of the day, the whole concept of doing 100 days of anything, it's certainly that. The way I'd explain it to people is, look, you can be as strict on yourself or as relaxed as you want. It's kind of your
Yeah.
journey, and it's about how you want to fit that in with other pressures of life and work commitments and things like that.
Hmm.
And I think personally, I took the approach of, I'd worked with cloud. I'd worked with cloud for several years before I took that
Yeah.
on. But I think, even for people like myself who maybe have been working for a long time in the industry, you look round and it's not just the new people coming into the industry for the first time that it can seem quite overwhelming. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to learn. It's the same. It's the same feeling for long established industry people
Oh
that
yeah,
have worked for
definitely.
10, 15, 20 years. It's there's a lot of things. So my own reason was really to try and focus, like you say, it's when you do it in public, you
Hmm.
kind of holding yourself accountable to actually do it, and not
Yeah.
just post something and then not bother because you don't get anything. But I mean, what kind of side effects did you notice as you were going through it, Rishab, in terms of that community? And I'm assuming you're referring to things like how motivating people are towards you when you reach certain things. How did you find that, and were there any strange side effects that you didn't really recognize until they happened?
I would say blogging. I didn't blog before, and this was after I started my first round of 100 Days of Cloud. And the few blog posts that I wrote were on dev, and those were just me taking down notes and sharing them on my blog. This was not meant to be for others. Um, but I think that was like really strange, because I was not into writing. I don't like writing that much. Um, but yeah, that was a strange passion that I built through this. And I'm not sure if people know, but I have an open source repository on GitHub where I have shared all my notes for all the certificates that I've taken, and it's well maintained. And I recently published it as a web app, so people can have it as a app on their phone, or they can view it on the web, which was pretty loved at the Twitter community, or the cloud community on Twitter.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, have you got that now? Do you want to quickly show us and talk us through? Because I guess any links that we talk about now, we'll put in the chat below, and obviously people can get access to that. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that you've got there now, let me know when you got it on your screen, and we'll have a quick look through it, and you can explain what you've been up to.
Sure. Yeah, I can show you guys.
Are you flick over to the desktop? Yeah, you've got it there.
Yep, I've got it here.
Cool. Yeah, go for it. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is this is a template for Gatsby starter blog that I used here, and I built this as part of I think a hackathon at Hashnode, which is the platform I use for my blogs now. So they had a hackathon to build something with AWS Amplify, and I did participate in it, but unfortunately I didn't win it. But I'm still happy with the product that I have here. So basically, I've sat 8 certificates, but I've been only able to publish notes for 7 of them right now, and basically you just go to them and they're simple markdown notes which you might need at, like, let's say you have an exam in few hours and you just want to revise through the stuff that you have gone through, which in case like the video courses are really long. So it's just brief notes about all um, topics or services that might be asked in the exam.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So I know, yeah,
Yeah,
because I think I remember you saying at the time you were focusing quite heavily on AWS, and then you were looking a little bit into Azure. So, I mean, where did you get to in terms of the certification, Rishab?
I think. So, do you mean how many, like, which
Yeah,
certificates?
which shirts did you do? I can see them on the screen there. Do you want to talk us through? I mean, talk us through
Sure.
what you did, and are there any other things outstanding on your to do list, so to speak?
Sure, yeah. Well, I started with the cloud practitioner. I got it in 2019 when there was no 100 Days of Cloud challenge, and that was just part of me entering my first cloud role. I worked in help desk, so at the same company, and I just wanted to transition towards cloud, and I have been learning cloud when I was at help desk. And to be like capable of getting into the job, I just took cloud practitioner, just to like show them that I was motivated to get into cloud.
Yeah, sure.
And then in 2020, as part of the 100 Days of Cloud challenge, I started preparing for a solutions architect for AWS. But I was unsure if I wanted to go for pro. So one of the managers suggested me to go, like, instead of going upwards, he said go like parallel.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he said get all the associates, and then if you have some time you can decide which pro do you want to get. So I'm glad that I waited, because I was going to go for a solutions architect pro, but now I'm thinking DevOps pro given the new job.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I waited for that. And then I know that I came across Terraform, and I thought it's really cool because I started studying for Azure too at the same time. And we use a lot of CloudFormation at work, and I use it personally too. But then I'm like, Terraform looks cool because now you can build stuff in Azure, GCP, AWS, DigitalOcean, or any other cloud provider, you name it. And that is why I deviated towards Terraform. I'm like, I'm going to get this one first and then move to Azure. So that's how I got the Terraform cert. And then after that, I'm working my way through some of the Azure fundamentals for now. And the next one that I have on my mind is the security cert, and then the SC900, and then the Azure administrator for this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the 104, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, that's interesting on the security certs, actually, because they just released, I think it was 4 new SC certifications, haven't they, Microsoft? Whereas they had, I think, they had the AZ500, which was Azure Security, and they had the MS500, which was 365 Security. And it seems like they've kind of merged those now into this new SC range. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with the old AZ500 and MS500 exams, whether they stay or, I'm not sure exactly what the overlap is, but you're working towards those at the moment, are you, Rishab?
Yeah, I'm probably going to get the SC900, which is the fundamental security one. and then the AZ-104, the Azure Administrator.
Hmm.
Um, then I have plans for the DevOps one, the DevOps Expert, which is the AZ-400. Um, that that is for now for Azure. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty excited to get more, like to learn more about Azure. We don't use it so much at work, so it's pretty interesting to work with another cloud provider.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of where your career's moved now from doing these certifications, and I mean, it's great to see that you've put those up there because, like you say, they're kind of like revision notes. I mean,
Mhm.
personally, I've not dipped into the AWS world. It's one of those things where I thought, well, shall I, shan't I? I mean, I've been focused on Azure now for quite a while, and I don't know. I suppose I've just held off trying to dilute my knowledge into another cloud provider. But how are you finding that transition between AWS and Azure? Is that an easy transition to make? Are there any kind of hints, tips that you've noticed along the way?
Um, it's I won't say it's easy, but it does help if you already are familiar with what cloud is
Hmm.
and the basic understanding of how cloud works, like how we utilize different services um, for our production environments or for our solutions that we built. It does help that in a way, but because the naming is different and how you do things in different cloud providers is totally different. Because
Yeah.
the other day I was checking out Google Cloud and I was like, oh, this is so different than what I am used to. But yeah, I think at certain level it does help, just knowing the basic networking or basic
Hmm.
what does a service do in the basic terms. Their names might be different, but if you know what the underlying service actually does, you'll be off to a great start, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's quite an interesting point actually, because I think a lot of the conversations I've had with people who have come into the industry new, they said, look, I want to do this new cloud computing thing. That they may have just come straight out of university or done some college work. And it's one of those things I always kind of say to people, look, just understand the traditional basics of compute first. The traditional networking, storage, compute, virtualization slips into that. And
Yep.
once you've got that baseline knowledge, I guess you can transition that over to whatever cloud provider happens to kind of float your boat at the time. I guess whichever direction you want to
Hmm.
go. I mean, did you have any of that underlying knowledge before you started on your journey, Rishab? Or did you purely use this certification to kind of build that knowledge up? What was your background before you moved into cloud?
Yeah, not technically. As I said, like I worked as in a support role for about a year before I moved into cloud, and prior to that, I had my internship at the same company,
Sure.
which was as a junior IT administrator. So I did learn a lot in my internship, and thanks to my mentor, who, while that internship, like I had a lot of exposure to different projects, and he was the one who like got me interested into cloud.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they didn't have any job openings in either like system admin role or cloud roles. So I decided to join as a support person, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that I did. But that during that um, support role, I was allowed to like sit into certain meetings with the cloud team and the infrastructure team.
Hmm.
Where I think I learned the most is just shadowing them and understanding what we are trying to solve or provide solutions to. And I was always welcomed with all those noob questions or beginner level questions. And yeah, no, I think that helped a lot. But yeah, not prior infrastructure experience holder here.
No, I mean it's a funny thing I find it. Obviously when you look at the cloud and the way the cloud is being adopted now, that all of a sudden, traditionally it used to be the case that you'd have teams of people, you'd have networking specialists,
Hmm.
you'd have storage specialists, you'd have compute and virtualization and hardware specialists, and
Yep.
when you move to the cloud, you kind of need to have quite a lot of all of that knowledge, really. If you're the cloud engineer, you're the person now that needs to, pick up a lot of that, knowledge. So, I mean, in some respects, I feel for people that are coming into the industry now and seeing all this stuff, granted with cloud, things have been abstracted away and the underlying layers towards the traditional storage and computer networking have been, relatively abstracted away. So you don't necessarily have to know the deep dive detail, I guess, on all of those different traditional compute areas. But it's still a lot of information you kind of have to know about, even, knowing networking, knowing, what the IP stack is all about, knowing how to configure networks and routing and CIDR and all of that good stuff. It's still a lot of knowledge that you kind of need. And I think when I first started doing the cloud certs, I remember at the time, and obviously we'll talk about the ability to learn these things in a second with some of the resources. But back then there wasn't a lot of information around really pointing at how do you translate from the traditional into the cloud. It was kind of like, we've got these virtual networks. It's like, okay, but I mean, obviously with things like from the Microsoft side, MS Learn now, it's exploded with the content that they've got on there. But I mean, before we dip into the kind of like how you pick up your knowledge and where you get the kind of learnings from, what was that transition like for you? Did to move over into the DevOps world, Rishab? Was that kind of just something that happened naturally? You said that obviously because you wanted to start looking at Azure, you looked at Terraform, and I suppose that whole infrastructure as a code piece took you on that journey a bit. I mean, was that just a natural evolution, or did you have to think long and hard, or were you nudged in that direction? And what are your thoughts about that now?
I think it was a step in a good direction for me, but it did happen naturally though. As I got more involved into, as you said, like infrastructure as code, setting up CI/CD pipelines. To be honest, I think I was already doing that in my cloud role, and it just naturally like hit my table one day, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I would love to like work with multiple cloud providers, because in my cloud role I was only focused in AWS, and I only did like cloud formation and all things AWS. So it was not so much exposure to all these different tools that I would be getting in the DevOps role. So I was all excited, and until now I'm still in the transition period, and it's a roller coaster ride, I would say. There are just so much tools and services that you could leverage to build solutions around, and I'm just trying to grasp my knowledge for all of them right now. I'm getting advanced at Terraform is my goal. And I know you started a series, which is really good.
Yeah. I mean, to talk about that whole Terraform infrastructure as code thing, I think I've spoken with a lot of people about the whole infrastructure as code thing, and I know, if you were a traditional developer, coding becomes a lot more natural than it would if you're an operations person, because operations folk traditionally, I guess, have relied very much on that sort of monolith application coming out, installing it, feeding and watering it. The whole concept of, I think people refer to it now as, you kind of, your servers aren't pets anymore. You don't necessarily have to feed and water them. They're more cattle. You just spin them up, get your application on and move on. You kind of forget about these things. So when people were talking around the whole kind of, not just infrastructure as code, but then there's things like everything as code. We talked about CI/CD pipelines and configuring those with the YAML files, which is just another configuration code base essentially, and then storing that in the Git repo. I mean, these were terms that, as an operations person, traditionally you've been a time served in the industry. They were kind of like a little bit alien, and it was a difficult position to understand why you'd want to do that, and I guess, I mean, what's your take on that, Rishab? But in terms of, clearly you're in a DevOps role now, you're using this technology on a daily basis in your job. How do you see that in terms of infrastructure, opposing the traditional software development role. Have you got any kind of insights into how you find that?
Um, I think it saves you a lot of time. Is the first thing I want to say. Um, and even it this is based on my personal experience and working at the same company. I have like really less exposure to how solutions are at other places.
Hmm.
But I think for us, it meant every time we did a deploy, we saved around 2 hours doing it through CI/CD pipelines and having infrastructure as code.
Hmm.
Whereas in the past, we did it all manually. Some of that was scripted, but that was like bash scripts, PowerShell scripts that would run on the infrastructure after we have stood them up.
Hmm.
Whereas now, the entire infrastructure in the cloud is stood up automatically. You just pass in the values for some variables, depending on what resources you need. And those 2 hours, I think, counts to a lot of time if you like add it over a year,
Yeah.
given that we do like deploys every 2 weeks. So I think the whole automation is like really interesting. And you also get the chance to improve it because all of it is now version controlled somewhere and you've written it down into a YAML file. So if you want to improve it going down the time, like it makes it a lot easier doing that. Whereas you had to rely on your mouse and keyboard to deploy infrastructure, which could be cumbersome sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think I mean I'm still seeing quite a large mix, and
Yeah.
there's obviously there's there's a desire in some respects to want to use these technologies for some businesses that I work with because they are modern ways of working, I suppose you could call it that.
Hmm.
Even though they've been around for several years, I think in the operations side, I guess what I'm seeing now is there's a little bit of a mix in terms of yes, there are definitely things that businesses can do with infrastructure as code and CI/CD, things like policy and governance and
Oh
roles-based
yeah,
authentication
definitely.
and those kind of things. The kind of configuration side. I suppose the one thing that I'm seeing difficult, I suppose, is that transition. When you've got companies that are looking to move into the cloud, they've got a base of applications, and arguably a lot of those applications are going to be, monolith,
Hmm.
traditional sort of VM installed applications.
Yep.
And yes, clearly you can look at those applications on a case by case basis and maybe, optimize them and transform them into more of a cloud version of that application. But that all takes time, So I think there's
Hmm.
this balance, isn't there? Is in terms of what can you move over and optimize to get into the cloud, and then how do you go forward then? So I suppose I'm seeing that it's definitely that way is the DevOps way, the CI/CD,
Yeah.
the whole automation route. But I guess at the moment, a lot of companies I feel are probably still in that either upskilling their own internal staff, not quite understanding what the end goal is. Obviously from the position of the work that you're doing now in the business you're working with, what is it that you spin up and stand up? Is it software development infrastructure that runs applications that have been done, or is it infrastructure? Talk me through that, Rishab, and what are your experiences like with what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, we stand up. It's a I would say it's a software as a service. Is a like the solutions that we as a company provide, and this is just from one of the BUs that I've been working under ECI, which I've worked for like 3 years now. Um, but yeah, it's just standing up in like infrastructure for that software for our customer base, and it's pretty like it's a lot of infrastructure. And I know I did some manual deploys when I started my cloud role, and it was not good, I would say, comparing it to today's ways of doing it.
Yeah,
And I'm just fortunate that like our team decided to automate it. I know it took a lot of time to automate everything where you just go in and you just set the build as a production build, and you get everything now with just a click. And it was so impressive the first time I saw it. But yeah, I think I know I feel you. Like, I agree with you on how companies can not go this route right now because it just takes a lot of time and it's not the traditional way of doing things. And even some of the companies might need to like hire some experts on the subject matter here to just get them into cloud. So no, I feel the challenge here, but I think it's a step in the right direction, I would say. And you can already see this with huge enterprises like Microsoft. I was really amazed to see .NET Core and how like now you can have containerized Microsoft apps, like traditional Microsoft app that were written in like ASP.NET or .NET 4 maybe.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that.
Yeah, and you know that's exactly what I was going to touch on next is that whole containerization piece, because I mean I'm still seeing that argument over containers versus the traditional deployment of applications, and I suppose you've got to boil it down, haven't you? Of do you have that end goal? I mean, why would you want to use all these not traditional? Sorry, why would you want to use these DevOps principles and the little and often changes? In order to make your application optimized, better, include more features, whatever it may be, and I try and explain to the customers that I work with is look, sometimes it's very they're very sort of standoffish, I guess, in terms of I'm not sure they're not really sure what the end goal is and why they'd want to walk down this road. And I think until you can show them with a small application, maybe a less business critical application of how you can re-architect that solution maybe in the cloud and then wrap all the infrastructure as code piece around, I think, like you say, when you get to that end goal of, well, okay, we need to now deploy a new update, or we need to change some permissions, or scale that out somehow, you can either automate it completely, or you can have it run through a CI/CD pipeline and have it approved. And all of a sudden, it's all of those things that you'd wish you'd had 10, 15 years ago, but they obviously weren't around. They weren't that mature as technologies then, or, if in existence at all. And I think when customers are starting to get their heads around those elements, all of a sudden you kind of sideswipe by this containerization thing and Kubernetes, and then you throw all of that into the mix and say, well, okay, maybe we have got that traditional application. Maybe it's an application that was written by some company 10 years ago, and it's just been sat on a VM and nobody knows anything about it. Well, okay, and you can explain now that there are ways and means of actually, analyzing that server and service and extracting that and porting that over into things like containers. I mean, are you working with any? Are you doing that kind of work now with the company you're working for? Are you doing any of those transformations from old traditional monolith applications and converting them into cloud applications?
Maybe in the future we do have some plans, but not currently. I know that I have dealt with one internal application that we used as a team that I had to bring it over into the cloud. It was running on our like physical infrastructure at the office, and that was a cool, fun project to work with. But yeah, not like an enterprise solution, or I don't know, a bigger product that we are trying to move to a, like you said, Kubernetes or containerizing the app into this whole new DevOps world.
It's definitely it's definitely a journey. Is probably the cliche way of putting it. Is that this doesn't happen overnight, and this is a series of little and often steps that you kind of head towards over time.
Yeah.
I mean, so the kind of projects that you're doing now, I mean, how do you keep up to date with your learnings? Is it on the job? Do you specifically go out your way to learn a specific skill? I mean, what do you use, Rishab, in terms of keeping your skills up to date?
Um, I think a lot of it is coming from Twitter, I think, which is not
Yeah.
good, but
Well, no,
um,
yeah.
I think we have got a great community with uh, being 100 Days of Cloud or its Cloud family. Um, and there's a lot of like rise of good content creators recently. I think it's due to the pandemic, but it's great to
Mm,
see people going out of their comfort zone, creating content on YouTube or its blog posts.
yeah.
So I think I write down my yearly plan in the beginning of the year, and this is the second time I did it. The last year I did it, and it was a great year for me. Um, but yeah, this year too, I drilled it down, talked to my manager at work, see what's in for my new role and like what tools I need to learn
Yeah.
and which one of those tools I am interested in the most personally.
Hmm.
So I start with those to just get the momentum and get into the zone. And for me, it was Azure this time, and that's why I've been like drilling down all the Azure services, and I'm just amazed with all their solutions that they provide as service. And then, yeah, for resources, I kind of stick to there are three of or maybe more. I think it's a Cloud Guru, any free content that's on YouTube from Free Code Camp or I think the other one can't remember the other one. But yeah, anyways, we'll link it down below. But um, and then Cloud Skills, they're doing a great job at those
Mm,
boot camps. I feel like those were needed. Like you hear coding boot camps and you go like, it's all the Twitter buzzwords, but no, it's been great. I haven't been as active in those boot camps. It's hard to keep up with them if you're working and you're learning something else. But I think it's a great initiative by Cloud Skills. Um, yeah, I think those are three or two kind of resources that I use and I try to keep myself up to date. Um,
no, I mean that's really good to hear because I think, like you, you look around social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, all Reddit, Discord.
yep.
I mean, we're Slack, Teams. There's just so many different things kind of being thrown your way at any point in time, and I've kind of spoken with other guests about this kind of thing at the moment, and it can be quite overwhelming, I guess, in terms of the amount of content that's out there. Not disputing the fact that it is great quality content, and I mean, I try and follow as many people as I can. I think a previous guest, Jack Tracy, he mentioned about how Twitter is a primary source of information now because I
Yeah.
think how many times you look down at your phone and you're just randomly on Facebook or not so much Twitter for me, but Facebook just reading nonsense, just reading what so and so had for breakfast last week. Whereas if you shift your attention and follow the right people on Twitter and get some notifications when they post content, okay, you're still glancing at your phone, I guess, subconsciously and reading a post, but all of a sudden that is actually good information, I suppose. It's I suppose there's that argument of, yeah, it's still not great that you're constantly looking at your phone, but if you are going to do that anyway, because let's face it, phones are kind
Mhm.
of taking over everybody's lives. Either you put some controls in it as a person, and downtime is downtime, or if you choose just to spend your time that way, then why not make it count? I guess in terms of building your knowledge up.
Yeah.
It's a really really strange concept, I think. From and you're right in what you said. I feel the same way in terms of there's a lot more focus now on content and learnings because we're all locked in our houses,
Mhm.
for want of a better way of putting it, and we've got a lot of time on our hands, whereas, traditionally, I guess we'd all be out with friends and family, or dining out,
True.
or going to the cinema. All of a sudden now we're all forced to stare at a screen, or read
Yep.
a book. So why not put that out? So yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, to spin it back round to how we first met and the whole 100 Days of Cloud challenge. I mean, do you still keep in contact with the other core team members now, Rishab? Are you still playing an active part in that community? How's that going right now?
Um. Well, yeah, we we haven't have had a core team call in, like, I think it's been months now. And I feel like it's nobody's fault, but yeah, we have been active on our own journeys, I think.
Yeah.
And I know Antonio is he's building a Discord bot where you could track, or you could log your journey. You could ask the bot, "Hey,
Okay.
this is my day one, day two. This is what I've been doing," which is a great. I think it's a great initiative by him to have it in Discord, because I think most of the active members are on Discord rather than on Twitter, where they actively post what they have been doing
Yeah.
with their daily journey. And yeah, no, I've been talking to Antonio a lot, and we do have a new member in the core, which is Praveen. He has been quite active on the Discord himself, and he's putting out great content with blogs and YouTube videos for Azure, and he has been helping a lot of folks who have doubts about Azure or any questions or concerns. And I know you have been quite active too in the past, and I've seen some great blog posts from you too in the Discord. So yeah, I think it's a it's a good community to be part of.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think when we started last year, like, everybody had some time in their plate. As you said, like, we were stuck at home now, and eventually, I think it all worked out for everyone. I know um, GPS got a new job, so she said she won't have much time for 100 Days of Cloud. And then same thing with Antonio. Same with me. Christina, she was also she's also a core member, and she got a new job at Dev. So I think it all just worked out in the end, and we just kind of that's what got us busy, and we haven't been putting out as much um, content from the core. But I think the community itself is, like, really self-driven, and people are just sharing and logging what they have been doing every day.
I mean, that's what it feels to me, is that
Yep.
the whole community aspect of that 100 Days of Cloud
Mhm.
is very much about building people up. Is about
Yep.
having people there in the wings. If you've got a genuine question, a problem, not too sure which way to go with things, you jump into the 100 Days of Cloud Discord, and there will be, at least 50 people there willing to give you really
Mhm.
valuable advice. And like I say, that's how we first met. We were both on the journey together, kind of
Yep.
helping each other and cheering each other along, so to speak. And I suppose to some people it might sound a little bit, oh, why would I want to do that? And it's like, well, the one thing that I keep trying to tell people is the moment that you turn towards community, even just a little bit, even if you're just liking a post, sharing somebody's tweet,
Mhm.
saying well done to somebody, it's that whole saying of what you put in, you get back out. Because I think I've met so many absolutely brilliant people. I mean, Jose is one guy that sticks
Yeah.
out to me. He was, you could see it. He was so encouraging across the community, and he still is. And at the end of the day, those little things mean a huge amount. If you're really struggling, if you're feeling unmotivated because you've got, I don't know, a load of things that you need to read and learn, and you just don't have the motivation, just to have one person go, well done, you can do it. It is
Yeah.
so surprising how that changes your mind, because it's like you said at the beginning, if you're going to do this publicly, you kind of, it does sound cliche, but you're kind of not on your own, because there are always
Hmm.
people there to willing to kind of support you, cheer you on, and it meant so much to me when I was doing it. And like I say, arguably, I'm meant to be this seasoned veteran in the IT industry, so to speak. I'm not fresh out of college, and it's not my first job, and I'm not looking to study for my first certificate. I use that platform and that whole setup to motivate me to learn the things that I felt I needed to learn at the time. So yeah, I suppose is that how you would see it, Rishab, in terms of anybody new to it? Just get involved, and I suppose
Oh,
back to the 100 Days of Cloud thing. Does it
definitely.
turn does it turn into kind of like a self perpetuating community? I guess over time.
Um, I think it is right now, but yeah, I would say definitely start learning in public, hands down. That's it for me. That has been the best way to learn. Um, I know, as you said, like Jose, he's such a great guy.
Mm.
I still remember I posted something about my um, cloud practitioner, and that was way back. I think, yeah, more than a year ago, and I didn't know that what Twitter is, what like tech community on Twitter is, and he still like liked and replied and said great work, and like what's the next cert you're looking at. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the community aspect of all this is really great, and as you said, like the community drives itself.
Mm.
um like I know we have core team, but we just basically either are monitoring Discord or putting out some sort of instructions on GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's the community itself that has like caused 100 Days of Cloud to what it is now. um and yeah, no, I think, yeah, learning in public, hands down, for me it's the best way to learn. I
Couldn't agree
think
with
there
you. Yeah,
can,
more.
yeah, there could be downsides to it. um there's always good and bad to everything. But there's more good in our case.
Yeah.
Is what I've seen.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think just turning the attention to the community a little bit more, getting involved, becoming active, supporting other people. Don't just treat it as I need to learn something, therefore I'm just going to take. Just put a little back, just put that little bit of support back in, and all of a sudden you're speaking like we are now. We're on different parts of the globe, and I like to think we've got a bit of a friendship going on across the virtual arena. It's the first time we've met now. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
talking if it wasn't for 100 Days of Cloud. You'd be sat in Canada, or I'd be sat in sunny South Wales in the UK.
Yep.
And we just be very blinkered into our own little things, and I think it's just been such a fantastic thing to just bring people out of themselves a little bit more, I guess. So, I mean, yeah, I guess we'll put some links down below to all the GitHub repo, the 100 Days of Cloud Challenge, and obviously all the stuff that you've got, Rishab. I mean, before we wrap up the call or anything, there's a couple of questions I just want to ask you
Sure.
related to, obviously tech and, the future. Is there anything you're currently working on at the moment as a little bit of a side project? Are you interested in something? If so, what is it? And second part to that question is, what's the next big bet for you? Where are we going with technology, and what does that future look like from your point of view, Rishab?
Sure. For the side projects, I had one. I've been working on it for quite a while, and this was part of me studying for Azure AI fundamentals. I've been quite intrigued with AI itself. And I'm also testing out the static web apps. I don't know
Okay.
why I haven't heard about it for quite a while now, but it's just amazing. So I'm trying to, if you say, merge those. So I have a project that I built through AI, and then I'm trying to host it um, in through the static web apps, and I'm blogging all about it. So part one of that blog is already out, and hopefully the project will be done soon, so I can continue writing more about it. And yeah, that's on the personal side of projects that I've been building. Um, Sorry, what was the next question?
I was just going to say I mean, that's pretty cool to hear. Actually, static web apps and AI, yeah, brilliant things to try. It's just great to try and glue things like that together and see what the result is, what you're getting out. But yeah, the second part was, what are your big bets for the future? Where are we going in technology? What's the next big thing from your point of view that we should all be looking at? Do you think?
Um, I want to say AI, but I think a lot of folks have said it. um, I I was just watching. I think you were too. Yeah, I saw your video, in your tweets when you were mentioning about Microsoft Mesh,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
I was just amazed at what Microsoft has done with, um, like augmented kind of reality and how they have built around it. Like I was already invested in virtual reality and wanted to get an Oculus.
yeah,
I'm holding back just because of how Facebook like ties your account to it, and you
yeah,
cannot
yeah.
activate it without the Facebook account. I just hate that. But yeah,
Mm.
it was great to see what Microsoft has come with, and I think that would be like my take on it, like where the future is going to be.
Yeah, I mean that's a cool place. If anything, yeah. I mean, I think when Microsoft announced it at Ignite a couple of weeks back now, it was.
Hmm.
I think like I was always already invested. Had an
Yep.
early VR headset, and we've been playing with VR for a while,
Hmm.
but. I think it hooks into those things that you were talking about, things like AI, and data, some machine
Yep.
learning models and data, big data, that kind of thing. But then I guess for me, it's that mesh, that presentation in an augmented
Hmm.
reality. I think Scott Hanselman showed a video where he had his Ubiquiti network switches, and kind of like from an
Oh
augmented
yeah.
reality, you kind of hold your phone camera up, and it
Hmm.
recognizes a switch, and it can tell you. It just overlays a little bit of a diagram on each of the ports, and you can configure to say which network cable is for which device, that kind of thing, and just the power that that's gonna give everybody, I suppose. Just that ability to whether HoloLens become drops in price, which I'm sure it will
Hmm.
in good time, or there will be more consumer type devices that you can wear to kind of overlay
Yeah,
that augmented reality layer.
definitely.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think I remember seeing the HoloLens probably a good 4 years ago now. I think it might have been at
Hmm.
one of the Ignite conferences, and just I think the development with some partners that they'd done at the time, it was kind of like, I think one of them was um, fitting a kitchen appliance, fitting out a new kitchen. So you'd have a space and you could put the HoloLens on, you could see what your kitchen would look like. Even then, it was like, well, that's pretty cool. And then the
Hmm.
fact that you could have your at the time it was Skype for Business call. You could pin it to a blank wall in your house for argument's sake. But then
Nice.
your glasses would always have it there. So it's just all of a sudden it makes you think, doesn't it? That where are we going? It'd be cool to
Yep.
see some of these developments in the future, what they look like. But
Definitely. Yeah.
Rishab, this has been cool. I mean, we'll call it there. I mean, are there any last parting words of wisdom you'd like to impart before we wrap up this call?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would just want to say everybody who's trying to get into cloud or is trying the cloud for the first time, it might seem overwhelming at first, and all those tweets that you see on Twitter might be overwhelming, but just stick in. You'll do great. Try to focus on basics more, and yeah, just be consistent.
Absolutely. Rishab, this has been an absolute pleasure. So great to speak to you finally. Obviously not in the flesh, but virtually as good as we can get at the moment. Thanks so
Yep.
much for joining me tonight. It's been really great. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much, John, for having me.
Not at all. I'll catch you on Twitter fairly soon. Thanks, Rishab.
Yep.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.